Hey guys, my name is Danny, and we have a very important discussion, a very important topic that we want to be talking about today, especially in a COVID-19 world, in the middle of so much difficulty, hardship. There's a lot going on. Many people are struggling mentally, emotionally, of course, not even to mention financially and such with everything that's going on. And so I thought it'd be very important to have a dialogue, a discussion around this personally. What's it like having to deal with any sort of anxiety, worry, fear, and such in the middle of living through a crisis such as we are. So I have Shannon on the call. Say hi, Shannon.
What's up? How's it going, guys?
Awesome. So we're going to do a little interview here. And Shannon, thank you so much for taking out a couple minutes to have the discussion with us. I think it's a very important topic, and it's important that we have the discussion. So I appreciate you doing that.
Of course, yeah. Glad to be here.
All right, so I just have a couple questions that we're going to ask Shannon. Shannon, thank you so much for being, available, and then also just for opening up your heart and your life a little bit. And I really pray and hope that this is encouraging to whoever may be tuning in and watching this. First of all, I just had a question. What about you personally in Shannon's life? Have you ever had to battle through any feelings of anxiety, whether it's, in a post-COVID-19 world or, in the middle of everything that we're going on, or maybe previous to this? Have you ever had to deal with that personally?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as long as I can remember, anxiety has been a part of my life. So like I've struggled with anxiety like in a broad sense for as long as I can remember, and it has obviously like it's ebbed and flowed. Like it's had high points and it's had its low points of when it's not really there as much, and then it's had times where it's like the only thing that I can think about. But yeah, throughout my life, I can't really think of a time where anxiety wasn't a part of that. And so obviously, if you're a person like me who struggles with anxiety, just generally, something like the COVID-19 pandemic can be something that elevates those feelings of anxiety, astronomically. And so navigating that has been interesting. It's had its difficult days and it's had its better days for sure. But yeah, I have had quite a bit of personal experience with it for sure.
And I know that there's so many people that can relate to that, for sure. I know from, text messages I receive, phone calls, and just, perusing through Facebook and Twitter, and you see that it's a very prevalent issue for good reason, right? I mean, we are living in some unprecedented times right now, and a lot of people are struggling, and it's hard to manage our emotions and our mental well-being as well. With that being said, what do you think are some ways? Have you found any practical ways or any healthy ways to cope with, or maybe find hope in the middle of dealing with these particular struggles? Be it our mental, emotional well-being, and dealing with anxiety, worry, and such. Have you found any healthy ways to cope?
Yeah, like for sure. Like I'm a huge advocate for myself and for people that I know, for just being open and honest with the people that love you and who know you. I think that's like the first step that I took when my anxiety had reached kind of a pinnacle of it was the worst that it had ever been. I wasn't really functioning very well. I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating, and it felt like it was this just overwhelming cloud of everything I do is tainted through this. And so the first step for sure for me was just telling people like, hey, I'm not doing well, and I'm not really able to get it off my mind. I've tried to, be mindful and practice self-care or whatever that means, and it's not really cutting it. And so kind of reaching out for other people I think is a huge first step, because it takes you out of that isolated bubble of this is just me and my thoughts, my feelings, and I'm alone in this, because it lets other people who care about you hopefully know how you're doing. Second to that, I would say for sure, getting to a point where I was willing to seek professional help was huge for me, and like honestly was a game changer in my recovery. And now like I still deal with anxiety today. I still deal with depression today, and it's not that those things are completely gone and I'm like, I figured it out, I got the cure. But going to therapy and for me, like going on medicine was something that was good for me. And with a doctor's help and like with professional help, I was able to get to a point where I was living my life in a healthy, manageable way. And so I would say if you haven't at least talked to a doctor or talked to a professional therapist, that is huge, because those are people who are trained in being able to deal with those kind of things. I mean, you can talk to your friends and your family, and you should, um, but they may not know how to comfort you. They may not know how to help you, because the things that are happening in your mind, they don't always make sense to anyone but you in your mind. And sometimes they don't even make sense to you. And so having a professional who is trained to help through those things can be huge. But beyond all those things, which I think are super important and they definitely have their place and should not be like dismissed, relying on the Lord was that was my anchor and my foundation. So even if talking to my friends and family didn't feel like it was working, I knew even if therapy doesn't help, or if medicine doesn't help, like you have all these questions of like, what if none of it works and I'm still left here? Knowing that God still loves me, that God is still with me, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Like, even if I'm just hanging on by a thread, and like the storms and the sea are just like battering me constantly, like He's not going to let me go, because He promises to be with me. And so finding scriptures that were a comfort to me has been huge. And then beyond topical scriptures that are comforting, setting a rhythm of spending time with the Lord and bringing my anxiety, my fears, and my concerns to Him. So, I can talk to as many human people as I want, but if I'm not bringing my cares and my concerns to Christ, then there's something missing, because Scripture says, "Cast your cares upon Him, because He cares for you." And if God, the Creator of the universe, who loves me and died for me, cares for me, He wants to hear my anxieties. He wants to know what's on my heart. He's not burdened by the heaviness or the darkness of my thoughts and my mind. And so just seeking Him as a refuge has been huge.
I think that's super profound, and God has given us the gift of community, and it's something that we speak about all the time. And so it's great that we can take advantage of that, of those friends, those family members that care about us. But I know I don't always have the words to say, and even sometimes in my well-intentioned, maybe I can come off and say something that isn't helpful. And so there's nothing wrong with seeking professional help. God has given us the gift of doctors, right, as well, people that have studied and that know this, and they have studied, the particular topic and can really provide some extra help to people. So I think that's really, really encouraging. Well, speaking on the topic of encouragement, if somebody is watching this right now, if somebody is dealing with, the hurt, the hardship, the anxiety, the worry, the fear, maybe even borderline depression, what kind of words of encouragement do you have for somebody who may be dealing with?
Yeah, so I just wanted to share a few scriptures that have kind of been my lifeline in those super dark times, because I remember when my anxiety and my depression were at its worst, coming before God and asking Him, like, please, would you alleviate this? Would you take this from me? But also having faith that, like, hey, God, even if you don't take this from me, and I still have to deal with it, I know that you are still faithful to me. I know that you are still there with me, that you still love me. And so I just wanted to share a couple scriptures that have really been just something that I have held on to. It's first one being Psalm 3, that starts in verse 4. I cried aloud to the Lord, and He answered me from His holy hill. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. When I was super anxious and I wasn't sleeping, I was like, man, like, God, would you just help me? I use that as a lifeline of like, I'm going to cry to God, and He's going to answer me. He will be with me. And yeah, that was just something that like really, it just stuck with me, of knowing that, like, you know what, when I lie down and God gives me rest and God gives me sleep eventually, whenever that sleep comes, I will know that He's answering me, and that sleep isn't just so I can feel, I mean, sleep is important for the body, but it's also a gift from the Lord that he sustains us with. And so I was really comforted by that. And then another passage that was super monumental in just my walk with anxiety and depression is Psalm 46. You'll find that throughout the Psalms. There's so much comforting word there and just realness. I think it's interesting. A lot of these are by David, and he was being chased and his life was hunted, and like he clearly was anxious, right? Like he was afraid. He's talking about like not being able to sleep because he's worried. And but he also is recognizing that that God is his sustainer, and that God is a refuge for him. So this is Psalm 46, starting in verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when the morning dawns. And so that was kind of a passage that for me, I thought to myself, if my anxiety keeps me awake all night long and I never sleep, God is still with me. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. And that God will help her when the morning dawns. So I'm like, if I get up the next morning and I never slept, like God is still going to be with me when the light comes up. And he's with me when it's dark, and he's with me when it's light. And just knowing the steadfastness of God and his continual comfort to us, regardless of whatever season we are in.
Guys, there's so much, I think, hope that we can really glean from the scriptures. And when we look at the life of somebody like David, who obviously was constantly in peril, constantly having to deal with a lot of the things that, and a lot of the same emotions that many of us feel, especially right now, I think there's a lot of comfort that we can glean. And especially because it's so raw, it's so pure. It's like, it's exactly what he's feeling. And he's not trying to pretend that he's not feeling these things. And I think it's good that we can be open, we can be honest, and God is big enough, and God cares. He cares for the way we feel and how we think, emotionally, spiritually, physically. He cares. And so, guys, I know this is a huge topic, and we're barely scratching the surface here, but I really pray and hope that it's a little bit of an encouragement to whoever is watching this, and just to know you're not alone. You're not alone. We love you. We're praying for you. If there's any way that we can care for you better, please let us know. Shannon, thank you for being so vulnerable, and thank you for sharing so much of your own personal life experiences with us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you on the next video.
Bye.